حضور فريق مركز ترينز للبحوث والاستشارات. أعزائي متابعو فعاليات المركز عن بعد من خلال البث المباشر على موقع المركز ووسائل التواصل المتعددة، أحييكم وأشكركم باسم مركز ترينز ورئيسه التنفيذي الدكتور محمد عبد الله العلي. محاضرة اليوم معولمة وهجينة بامتياز، حيث أنها متعددة الوسائط بالحضور الفعلي وعن بعد، كما أن اللغات المستخدمة متعددة، فهي اللغة الإنجليزية والعربية وفي بعض الأحيان اللغة الفرنسية. ضيفنا لهذا اليوم هو السيد حكيم القروي، أحد مستشاري الرئيس الفرنسي ماكرون لتفكيك الإسلاموية السرية بفرنسا، ومستشار رئيس الوزراء الفرنسي الأسبق جون بيير رافيران، ومستشار متخصص في العالمين العربي والإسلامي بمعهد مونتاني المرموق بباريس. ليس هذا فقط، ولكن ضيفنا لهذا اليوم متعدد التخصصات بامتياز وبمهارة فائقة. فحكيم القروي يرأس شركته الخاصة للاستشارات الاستراتيجية، كما أنه قام بالتدريس في جامعة ليون الثانية، وعمل في بنك روتشيلد لسنوات بداية من عام 2006، وفي عام 2011 انضم إلى شركة الاستشارات الاستراتيجية غولون بيرجي، حيث كان مسؤولا ومشاركا متخصصا في الشؤون الإفريقية وتقديم الاستشارات للحكومة الفرنسية، كما أنه رجل أعمال وناشط في المجال الاجتماعي أيضا، حيث كان قد أنشأ نادي القرن 21 وقادة شباب البحر المتوسط بفرنسا ودول البحر المتوسط. ألف القروي كتبا وتقاريرا عدة تنظر لإعادة هيكلة الإسلام في فرنسا بهدف الاندماج ومنع الأصولية المتطرفة المؤدية للعنف، وكيف تصنع الإسلاموية، وكيف يجب أن نواجه تلك الأيديولوجية المتطرفة. ولكن قبل أن أعطي الكلمة للسيد حكيم القروي، أود أن أبدأ تلك المحاضرة بالتأكيد على أن مركز ترينز للبحوث والاستشارات انطلاقا من احترامه لمبادئ المواطنة والعيش المشترك بسلام معا، لم يتوقف يوما عن مجابهة أيديولوجية جماعة الإخوان المتطرفة بطبيعتها بشتى السبل، وعلى رأسها المجابهة المعلوماتية والمعرفية، وذلك لما تمثله تلك الأيديولوجية من خطر على المجتمعات كافة، سواء في العالم العربي أو خارجه. ولتحقيق هذا الهدف ينشر مركز ترينز للدراسات شتى الدراسات العلمية بشتى أنواعها، وينظم الفعاليات بشتى أشكالها للمساهمة في التوعية بخطر تلك الجماعات، ونأمل أن تمثل تلك المحاضرة خطوة أخرى في هذا الطريق. صرح ضيفنا السيد حكيم القروي في مناسبات عدة أن الإخوان خطر على الإسلام وليس على فرنسا فقط، ومركز ترينز أثبت من خلال دراساته أن أخطر ما قامت به الإسلاموية الإخوانية أنها قد اختزلت الدين في السلطة والحكم لتشكيل نمط تدين مفارق للدين، جاعلة منه وسيلة للوصول إلى السلطة تحت غطاء تطبيق نظام تدعي أنه الدين، في حين أنه متخيل أيديولوجي وانحراف عن غاية الدين الفلسفية والأخلاقية. لقد بدلوا الدين بنمط تديني سياسي ميكافيلي يستهدف قبل كل شيء السلطة والغلبة والإقصاء لكل من يخالفه. خلاصة الأمر أنه بعكس ما يعتقد الكثير من الباحثين خصوصا في الغرب، كل شيء متغير لدى الإسلاموية إلا السعي إلى السلطة أو الاحتفاظ بها، فهو الثابت الوحيد في تاريخها الذي يضحى من أجله بالإنسان وبالمنظومة الأخلاقية للدين نفسه، وذلك بتحويله في نمط تدينهم إلى طائفة سياسية دينية تجور على الغائيات الفلسفية والأخلاقية العميقة للدين الإسلامي الحنيف، وذلك بالتوسل به للوصول إلى الحكم أو الحفاظ عليه، وبجعله محورا للصراع حول الحكم، فيصبح بدلا من أن يكون عامل تقريب وتوحيد ونماء ورخاء، مصدرا في صورته الإسلامية للفرقة والاحتراب والشقاء والتدمير. إنه تدين ضد الدين لا يعبد غير السلطة، كما برهنت إحدى دراسات مركز ترينز المنشورة حديثا. أترك الكلمة الآن للسيد حكيم القروي، فليتفضل مشكورا بتقديم محاضرته حول الإخوان المسلمين في فرنسا، واقع اليوم ومآلات المستقبل. Monsieur Qarawi, je vous ai présenté en arabe et maintenant je vous laisse la parole. La parole est à vous. Merci beaucoup.
Merci. So thank you very much. I'm sorry to be late. So, I maybe a word first. Why I'm here? Why I have done this work? It was really after the terrorist attack in Paris, 2015, against Charlie Hebdo, against Bataclan, against, and I wonder what can I do? What can I do? I'm part of the French establishment. I'm a banker, former speechwriter of the French Prime Minister. I've never dealt before with Islam. I'm the founder of a club, an association dealing with diversity, which is a great issue in France, the 21st Century Club. But I've never wanted to be involved in Islamic issue. After the terrorist attack, I said we have to do something. And the French Muslims, specifically those coming from the elite, they have to engage themselves to tackle the issue, because it's impossible just to contemplate the issue without doing nothing. So first, I've tried to understand what is at stake with the Institut Montaigne. Institut Montaigne is a French, the most important French think tank. Second, to advise the government informally. I'm not an official advisor, informally. And third, to act. It means doing what I think we have to do on the social media and on the ground. So I will present a global overview of the situation, and I will stress on the role of the Muslim Brotherhood, in fact of the late Muslim Brotherhood, because they are not, there is a new generation in France. I will explain you. And if you want, after, I could present you my research about the French jihadists, specifically on the jihadists, the 700 French jihadists and the 700 British, German and Belgian jihadists. So, the Muslims, who are they? How many are there? Around 6% of the adults in France. And among the total French population, it's more around 8 to 9%. It's about 4.5 million people, adult, above 15, with a lot of people who are living Islam. In France, we are talking always, every day, on converted people. We never talk about the people who are living Islam. And we have twice as many people from Muslim origin who live the faith. Half of the Muslims are French born now, and 75% and 75% are French. 25% having acquired the French nationality. 75% also are of North African origin. It means Moroccan, Algerian, Tunisian. More women among the converted. The demographic is quite specific because they are much younger than the rest of the population. To the left you have the Muslim, and to the right the French population in general. So you below 25, 29%, but between 25 and 49, 55% for the Muslims and only 32% for the rest of the French. Mm-hmm. So it's a very young population. This is the first demographic characteristic. Second, the sociology. There is a current statement in France about the failure of the French model of integration, French model. In fact, it works. Not for all the people, but it works for a majority. When you go to the level of studies, of course, for people above, the license and the master, you have 30% of the Muslim population. For the French as a whole, it's 42. The intermediate level is 60% compared to 40%. The issue we have is people without any degree, out of the society, out of the job market. It's 30%. And inside the 30%, a lot of women who just don't work, but also a lot of young French Muslims. 30% to be compared with 18%. When you look at their employment status, the situation is not so good. only 19% compared to 35% with upper class intermediary jobs. What it means? It means that they suffer from discrimination, and very often they go to the university, but they don't follow studies able to give them a job. So they study sports, they study sociology, they study literature, but at the end of the day, they don't find a job. But it's not, the integration is not a nightmare. It's not a failure. And the issue we have is not because of a social issue or a social failure. Third point, the geography. The geography is very highly concentrated. This is a map of the mosque. And if you follow the mosque, you follow the Muslims. Mm-hmm. Very concentrated, big cities, big French cities. North, Lille, the region around Paris, Lyon, and the Mediterranean coast, between Marseille to Nice. And Strasbourg, Metz, Bordeaux, Toulouse. It means that you have probably more than 80% of the Muslims in 50% of the territory. So a very highly concentrated population. When you look at their specificities, first, there are three common indicators. First, they are much higher than the average French population religious observance compared to the overall French population. Much higher. It means that 2/3 of the Muslims are believers and practitioners. For the Christians in France, it's around 3%. Christianism is being to disappear in France, and the Muslims is going to go up. Second, the halal food has become mainstream among the Muslims. It means it's more than the halal food. It's the halal way of life. And it's a way of reinventing a way of being Muslim. The same for the veil. The veil is not a religious veil, it's an identity. And it's a way to express its Islamity. This is three common indicators. In the same way, there is no French Muslim community. It just does not exist. You have links with Algeria, with Morocco, with Tunisia, with Turkey. There is no community. And no feeling of being part of a community. And this is the consequence. No communitarism, meaning an organization, centralized organization with just one goal. We will design, we will shape a new kind of French Muslims. It's totally decentralized. We made a survey with the French Muslims, and we tried to understand who are they from a religious point of view. And it gives this image. I mean, there is a huge gap inside the French Muslims in terms of ideology, in terms of religions and practice. Around 20% non-believers. They are leaving Islam, like most of the French who are leaving Christianity. 30% believers but non-practitioner. Even if non-practitioner, I mean, they can fast, but they will drink alcohol, but they will not eat pork, but they will marry a non-Muslim woman. And I mean, they are inventing a new way of being Muslim in the West. 25% pious daily practitioners. A lot of them being immigrants, first generation. The second one, the 19 and the 28%, it's more the second generation. And a third part, one of them being secessionist. The President Macron calls them separatists, the same idea, 15% and 13% authoritarian rigorist. It means that we have more or less three parts, three kinds of population. A half, they are Muslims like they are French Christians in France. They do believe, they do practice for the 2 or 3% of the French Christians. They are part of the French society. And they have more or less the same values. A fourth, and very often immigrants, first generation, they come with their values, coming from North Africa or Turkey. They are very pious and they do practice, but they don't explain to the rest of the society that they are Muslim first. They respect the values, they respect the French society. And we have 28%, a fourth of the population more or less, who say we are Muslim first. And for some of them, we are against the society in the name of Islam. And why? Because my identity, their identity, is being Muslim. And they are not Muslim like their fathers did. They are Muslims with a political point of view. And they mix identity with politics. Behind them, sorry, it's in French because it's a mix of different presentation. Behind them, at the very root of this movement, we have the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood coming from Egypt to North Africa. To North Africa, the 60s, the 70s. Second, after the revolution and the Arab Spring, they took more or less the power, as you know, in Egypt, in Tunisia, more or less in Morocco, and in fact they are associated to the power in Algeria for 20 years now. Sorry. So this is Tunisia. And we have in Turkey a close relationship between the AKP, the Erdogan party, and the Turkish variant of the Muslim Brotherhood. And they have a lot of organizations. They support organizations in the Arab world, and they support Turkish organizations in Europe. And third, they have influenced the Saudi Islam. They have built the Medina University. They have built the Lawami, the philanthropic organization, and for the young. They have built the Imam University. When they were very powerful in Saudi during the 60s and the 70s. Now they are all over Europe, but they are all over Europe since the end of the 80s. They came in Europe coming from North Africa and from Turkey at the end of the 80s. Who were there? Students, not workers, students. They are always very high level educated. Students in France, specifically coming from Morocco and Tunisia, not Algeria. For example, Ammar Lasfar. Ammar Lasfar is a Moroccan citizen. He came in France at the very end of the 80s as a student. He studied business. And with friends coming from Tunisia, Morocco and Tunisia, they've set up what we call in France l'UOIF, the French organization, Union des Organisations Islamiques de France, the French Union of Islamic Organization. and more or less the same in Germany. And they are based in Cologne. But yeah, of course, in Germany, it's a Turkish. And the same in Belgium. And they have also organizations in the UK, where they are quite powerful. This is a description of several organizations: education, the legal, Muslim-oriented. It's the Conseil, the European Council of the Fatwa, which is based in Dublin, in Ireland. They try to build a comprehensive organization with a national level, a regional level, and a local level, with both mosques and social organizations, dealing with philanthropy. And at the top, Sheikh Qardawi, as an influencer. Mm-hmm. This is the hierarchy of the organization. The Young's Halal Services, medical organization, an organization for the students, a high school, Institut Européen des Sciences Humaines, so dedicated to the imam training, an organization dedicated to the women, another one for Palestine and supporting Palestine, etc. And great business, because they are businessmen. And they set up a great, each April, there is a big fair dealing with, you find everything you want regarding Islam. It's in their hand, in the north of Paris. So they are very well connected and on the ground. And this is the same at a European level. So they have really built a comprehensive network. France, Germany, Belgium, UK at the national level, and another network at the European level. Mm-hmm. The issue now for them is that they have lost the second generation. And they have lost the second generation because their sons, the second generation, they explain to them, you don't know, you don't speak very well Arabic, and we will keep the power, because they have built, powerful organizations with a lot of money, with a lot of business, and they have decided to keep the business. Amar Lasfar, who is one of the founders of the Muslim Brotherhood in France, he's still the chairman of the organization. And there are more or less 4 or 5 people who control everything. The issue for them is the new generation was attracted by another version. And they have, step by step, quit the Muslim Brotherhood. And despite their comprehensive network, they didn't keep the younger generation and the second generation. And the second generation was influenced by the Salafi version. The Salafi version first coming from the Muslim Brotherhood with the connection with Saudi. The Salafi version with, at the time, the connection with the Turkish. And of course, some of them were trained in Saudi, and specifically in Medina University. I've been in the Medina University, and I met the chairman, Dr. Marzouki, and I've explained him the impact of the Medina University on the French Islam. And he told me, my first issue is the French, and specifically the French with North African origin. Because they are coming here in Medina, to find, they are looking for very conservative Islam, and they are looking for arguments against the West. the Salafi, the Saudi, during this time, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, they have spent a lot of money to expand their version. And we have to recognize it if we want to deal with the issue. It's very important. Of course, I mean, there were plenty of Muslim Brotherhood inside the Saudi institutions. And it was a deal. You expand our version, and the Muslim Brotherhood, they were very keen to do so, and they had a lot of experience. And now in France, the Salafi, it's not the Saudi, the Salafi, what we call in France the Salafi. They took the power on what is Islam, the orthodoxy, the religious belief, what is being a good Muslim, and specifically on the social networks and on internet. And we have to deal with this issue, knowing that the third generation and French Islam now is in the hand of people who are no longer Muslim Brotherhood or Salafi oriented. It's a new variant. It's a mix of the two. The orthodoxy of the Salafi and the willingness to be part of the political debate of the Muslim Brotherhood. So Rachid El-Jay, I don't know, this is the number of his followers on Facebook. It's the same than Emmanuel Macron. Same. He's incredibly powerful. Incredibly powerful. It means that 1.8 million for, as I've told you, 4.5 million French Muslims above 15. It means that a third of the French Muslims adults are following him. What is interesting is that he's a former Salafi, and now he became mainstream. Tarek Ramadan, the grandson of the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, 2.3 million of followers. Still, despite his troubles. He's no longer as influential as he used to. But not because of his problem. Because the Muslim Brotherhood, they are not mainstream. They are for the older generation. Islam et Info, it's Salafi oriented. Syria Charity, it has been funded by people, with very close connection to Assad regime. Baraka City, it's an official. It has been dissolved by the government. It was officially a Salafi organization, and I'll be clear. My definition of Salafi is not the one in Saudi. Salafi in France are the more conservative people regarding Islam. And we have a lot of anonymous websites too, very powerful. And when you look at what do they do? They are dealing with personal development. Q&A. It's not Islam. As a Muslim, may I do this or this or this or this? As a brother, as a Muslim brother, as a Muslim father, as a Muslim sister, what do I have to do? It's all about personal development. So they are looking for a way. And their fathers are not able to provide them the way. Because they said to their father, who are you? You have been exploited. You have been colonized. You are not from the country. And you are Tunisian, Algerian, Moroccan. I'm French. And your Islam is not my Islam. And I'm looking for a new Islam. And these people, they are providing this new Islam. It's on social media, but also mean, it's the Islam of the French. And of course, a lot of these people are against the government because they say the government is Islamophobic, and if it is Islamophobic, we have to be against the government. And I will show you after the jihadists, a lot of them are coming from the Salafi. It's about identity, and of course it's about social and economic failures. Because among, the very well-educated people, the number of very conservative and aggressive is very low. So, if I try to conclude, what is at stake? First, identity issues. They are wandering, they are in a quest for an identity. I'm no longer from my country of origin, and I'm not a full French, and very often I'm not recognized as a French. So I'm looking for an identity, and being Muslim is a global identity. It is based also on the disintegration of the traditional family model. They do not recognize the father, and in France, for example, girls succeed more than boys at school, and more generally speaking, in the society. And inside traditional family, boys, are above girls. And young boys, they don't understand where I am. What is my place? What is my role? And the French society considers them, a lot of them, as potentially risky people, and consider young French girls, Muslim girls, as victims. So for the boys, it's very complex to define themselves. And an aggressive version of Islam can be a way to find an identity. And of course, and last but not least, they have a lot of activists. And on the social medias, 99% of the market is occupied by the rigorous Muslim activists. In front of them, no one. There are believers, there are a lot of believers, a lot of practitioners, they are the majority, but they are not activists. And when you are looking for Islam, when you go to Google, you say in French, Islam, je veux faire ma prière, you go to a Salafi website. It explains why among the jihadists we have 30% of converted people. 30%. So this is the first overview, and if you want, we can go through the jihadist issue.
Okay. لو في أي أسئلة, si vous avez des questions, question. محمد.
Okay. Mohammed Farid. I'm from Trent, so I'm a researcher in political Islam. And I thank you very much for your very comprehensive conference, really, and brings a lot of points, a lot of data, things we didn't really know really about French Islam. But I would like first to start with a demographic question. Really, it's we know as we all know that in French census, for population, there is no religion is not mentioned usually. But I would like to. Well, I don't know. I'm not doubting anything, but it's just the sources of especially when you have to go into details with on unemployment, you can do that, but on main characteristic of the Muslim French population, usually there's a problem to get. There's a problem of data. Secondly, I would like to start from where you ended. Really, it's in your expose, you mentioned that now we are coming to a third generation, which is it's a mixed up of it's a new variant of Muslim Brotherhood and Salafis. Yeah. And at the same time, we're somehow people are going to the mainstream Islam.
Yeah.
So the question is it a positive development or not? If you have part of the Muslims who, after experiencing Salafism, Muslim Brotherhood variants, now they come into a mainstream Islam, as you have shown for how many followers that people are having. Is it a positive? Is it a positive development into the fresh Islam? Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Regarding the survey, it's a poll. It's a poll. A two-steps poll. First, it's an IFOP, one of the most famous. They call 15,000 people, and they ask, "What is your religion?" And it was under the umbrella of la CNIL, which is the French institution, which is in charge of all the data collection. And so 15,000 people, 1,000 said, "I'm Muslim," or "My parents were Muslims."
So from that, the extrapolation.
Yeah, so it's the extrapolation. And it was 5 years ago. Since 5 years ago, so there were different polls, and I'm pretty sure of the figure, the 6 millions. And regarding the different groups of Muslims, the same. It has been confirmed by different surveys. The mainstream movement, of course, it's a very good news.
Yeah.
And hopefully there are good news.
How much is influential the Muslim Brotherhood? Can you really measure its influence?
I mean, they have trained the new generation, and they have explained them how to act, how to be on the social media, the beginning, and how to be inside the community. And they have explained them, you have to be vocal, and you have to invent a way to be Muslim and French, and Muslim first. And Tarek Ramadan, who was a star, he was, I mean, he had a very powerful attraction power towards the young, educated generation, but it was 20 years ago. Now it's not him, and it's a mix, because Tariq Ramadan, his issue was not theology. He was a politician. Sure. Now we have a mix of politics and theology. Theology coming from the Salafi, and politics coming from the Muslim Brotherhood. For Rashid Abu Udailfa, the man with 1.8 million followers, he's going to the good direction. He suffered from a terrorist attack against him, coming from the far right. And I think the Kingdom of Morocco explained to him that he should follow the mainstream approach. But for other, they are YouTube influencers, and they are dealing with religion like the others are dealing with sports or movies or music. And the more polarized you are, the more you succeed. And for a lot of young French Muslims, Islam is only the Salafi way, because they don't know anything. They don't know anything. And imagine, I mean, in North Africa, I mean, all people are Muslims. You have a father, you have an aunt, you have a brother, you have a friend, you have, everybody is able to talk about Islam. In France, nobody. So you live inside a very small group of French Muslims. So it's very easy to explain that there is only one way. The way you find on internet and on the social media. So the answer, there are a lot of answers, of course, social, economic. But regarding it, I mean, only Islam, we have to provide to these young people an alternative. And that's what I try to do. I produced contents directly targeted to these young French Muslims, and we have 200,000 followers. It's not zero, but we need more. We need to be able to invest more to be able to have 1 million, 1.5 million. And we need stars. We need Facebook pages. We need anonymous sites. We need websites with Q&A. I mean, the same thing, same kind of things they provide. The issue is the funding.
Another question?
D'abord, merci bien, M. Karoui, pour cette conférence. Et je suis ravi de vous voir parmi nous. Vous êtes bienvenue à Abu Dhabi, bienvenue à Trend Center. أنا أطرح السؤال نتاعي بالفرنسي ومن بعد إن شاء الله سوف أترجمه بالعربي. Monsieur Karoui, donc ma question porte sur le dernier débat en France concernant la loi de séparatisme, ou bien sur le séparatisme islamiste, et qui a abouti sur la loi de confrontation du principe de la laïcité, comme ça. Je ne sais plus en fait je sais plus le titre exactement.
Les valeurs de la République.
Exactement, merci bien. Donc, ce débat a été accompagné par un autre débat sur la présence de l'islamo-gauchisme. Est-ce que vous croyez personnellement que ça existe vraiment dans les universités françaises? Est-ce que vous croyez que ça existe comme courant intellectuel? Et si c'est le cas, quel impact aurait pu avoir sur le développement de l'islamisme en France? Et qu'est-ce que ces gens? Est-ce qu'Olivier Roy, par exemple, Olivier Roy et François Bourga et d'autres, est-ce qu'ils sont vraiment fait partie de ce courant? Aussi, j'ai une question concernant la présence étrangère de la gestion de l'islam en France. La présence des ambassades Maroc, Algérie, la Tunisie et aussi la Turquie. Dernièrement, on a entendu parler d'une volonté française pour mettre fin à la présence étrangère de la gestion de l'islam en France. Mais est-ce que c'est réaliste? Parce qu'on a entendu, je crois personnellement, que les Français gèrent bien l'islam dans leur pays par le biais des ambassades étrangères. Est-ce que c'est vrai? Pas, je ne sais pas. نعم. merci. معلش نترجم انا. اذا سؤالي هو حول الوجود او حول النقاش العمومي الاخير في فرنسا الذي افضى الى انبثاق قانون مقاومه الاسلامويه او الانفصاليه الاسلاميه بالاحرى، والذي كان ترافق مع نقاش اخر حول وجود ما سمي اعلاميا بتيار الاسلام اليساريه. فهل هذا التيار يعني موجود حقا كتيار فكري؟ وإذا كان موجود ما هو تأثيره ووقعه على تطور الإسلاموية بداخل فرنسا؟ سؤال ثاني. نعم، السؤال الثاني هو حول الوجود الأجنبي في إدارة الشأن الإسلامي بداخل فرنسا، لأن فرنسا تدير الإسلام عن طريق السفارة المغربية والجزائرية والتونسية والتركية أحيانا، ويقال دائما بأنها عن طريق هذه السفارات تتحكم في الإسلام بداخل فرنسا. فهل هذا صح؟ ولماذا يعني في النقاش الأخير في فرنسا يقولون لا يجب وضع حد لتدخل السفارات الأجنبية في إدارة الشأن الفرنسي؟
دكتور محمد، سؤالان في غاية الأهمية. Alors, donc ça va, vous pouvez répondre en anglais, ça va, aucun problème.
About the French law, it was a huge debate in France with a question how the government can block the influence of what we call in France the Islamist people, political Islam. The issue is that the government, I mean, it's just able to block, not to promote. So the law provides, I mean, different kind of tools to the préfet, to the local administration, to the mayors, to the government, I mean the central body, to control more, to money coming from abroad, the mosques and the Islamic organizations, not only the Islamic organizations, the religious organizations. At the end of the day, it will not change anything. Not. Because the issue is not blocking, I mean, it's an ideology. It's not an organization. If it would have been an organization, it would, I mean, it would have been able to fight it, to forbid it, to block it. But it's just ideas and behaviors and believers. That's why we need French Muslims, and we have to talk to them to explain what is not the real Islam. I'm not sure there is a real Islam, a true Islam, but I know there are a lot of Islams, and we have to provide to them an alternative. Mm-hmm. You want to be Muslims? Good. And great. But you know, you can be Muslim with another way. And there are a lot of ways. And because of laïcité, the separation between the government and the church, it's impossible for the French government to go to the religious affairs directly. Mm-hmm. And it's impossible to give money to religious people who want to promote a liberal version of Islam. I mean, liberal, it means open-minded version of Islam. And that's what I've tried to do. Mm-hmm. And it's a nightmare to find money. Because the government say, it's wonderful, okay, but I can't. Wealthy people say, it's wonderful, but it's so sensitive. And the 2 or 3 wealthy Muslim people, they say, okay, I will invest in rugby team because I want to prove to the rest of the French population that I'm French first. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, nobody is ready to put not a lot of money because it doesn't cost a lot.
How much?
10 millions. 20 millions, not more. Producing, being on the social medias, helping people to be trained, organizing young people, being in 20 cities, not more. With an offer, social offer, cultural offer, dealing with Islam.
دكتور نزير دكتور نزير
So first, I have to answer the
yes, okay.
Islamo-gauchisme. It does exist. It's at the crossroad between the leftist and the Islamist. And the leftists explain that the Muslim people are victims of the colonial period, of the capitalism, and of the central power. And because they are victims, they have a lot of rights. So they can be what they want. They have credentials. So let them be what they want, even if they are against the Western society and Western values. It's not Olivier Roy, it's François Burga.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Olivier Roy, no, he's clean. No, frankly speaking, he's clean.
Yeah.
François Berga is not at all.
Okay.
I mean, he's a brain.
دكتور نزير
سيدي من فضلك
أوكي، دكتور نزير.
السؤال التالي عن الإحصاءات اللي أبديتها في البداية في محاضرتك. The statistics at the onset of your lecture are of 2014 and 15, and there are statistics. هناك إحصائيات أحدث في البارومتر الأوروبي عن هذا الموضوع من 2019 و2020، وهذه الإحصائيات الحديثة من البارومتر فيها تتغير كثير من الأرقام، يعني هناك كثير تغير في الأرقام. أي the statistics you have presented in your lecture at the beginning of your lecture are of 2014 and 15. I think they are around 2015. However, there are recent and more updated statistics about the Muslims in France done by the European Barometer in 2019 and 2020. And in those numbers, there is a big discrepancy and there is a big difference in the numbers between 2020 and 2015 or 16. However, you mentioned in your lecture one of the most important points about the arrivals of migrants to France, and they don't integrate within the French society, and at the same time, they dislodge from their home country and home nation. And in that emerges what is called inferiority complex and all the complications of the new home. I think these would have been the most crucial and critical to discuss about the Muslim Brotherhood, because the Muslim Brotherhood in France bet their money on these living on the fence. You see my point?
More or less.
Yeah. So I would like to mention one more thing. We are in Trends, we are very, very much up to date with lectures, with information about Islamics and Islamic Brotherhood. So would have been really appropriate if it was an analytical more than statistical information on the board, because we are specialists in this subject. We have Professor Weil, we have my colleagues, they are deep integrated. السؤال هو, this is a commentary rather than a question, but thank you so much for the lecture. Thank you.
After?
Thank you very much for your presentation. I think you can hear me.
For registration.
Okay, sorry. All right, so thank you again for your lecture. I had a quick question. One of the slides that you showed was about population density that highlighted the mosques that were present in certain different regions. The question I had was basically who's funding these mosques and where's the funding coming from, and does the French government have any oversight of how these the religious imams are being trained, or what type of sermons are being conducted, and so on and so forth? Because again, you talked about the brand of Islam, but again, it was discussed here that there are multiple Islams and different versions of Islam. So what kind of brand of Islam is being taught or is being preached in these different mosques? Thank you.
The mosques are funded by the local communities. 80% of the money. Foreign governments, they do represent not more than 20%. It means, of course, we don't have official figures, but I think there is around 300 million euros a year which go to Islamic reliefs, and most of them to build mosques. There are around 2,500, not mosques, but local to pray, and around 1,000 mosques. And we are still in a capex mood, because local communities, they are building their mosques. So large parts of their money go to build mosques. The government, the foreign government, they have 300 imams on the ground, a half coming from Turkey, with a connection with the Muslim Brotherhood, 30 from Morocco, and 120 coming from Algeria. All of them say, we do respect the Sultan, the president, and it's true, even for the Turkish. They don't go to war against the French Republic, against Macron, against but they are very, very conservative. Compare with the French values, of course. And this is not the main point. The main point is that they just no longer understand the young French Muslims. They come from, I mean, the Algerian countryside or Moroccan countryside, or not from Istanbul. I mean, and they arrive in France. And the young people say, okay, go back to your blood. Go back to your country. Who are you? Who will not deal with you? What is your credibility? Who are credible for them? Their peers. And it's really, I mean, it's a question of confidence. They believe their peers. It means young French Muslims using social medias. And not an imam coming from Oran or Constantine or from Rabat with an institutional stamp. It works for the elder people, for the first generation. They are welcoming imams coming from their countries of origin, but not their sons and not their grandsons, not at all. And for the French government, it's, I mean, the institutions are based on the foreign federations because they are more or less organized, because they put not a lot of money, but a certain amount of money to the mosque and to the people. And the government is, I mean, tried to deal with them, I mean, for 20 years. But at the end of the day, nothing happened. Because there is the conflict between the Algerian and the Moroccan. The conflict is imported in France, in the French Islamic institutions. And it's about their influence. And during this time, the Salafi, the young generation, the Muslim Brotherhood, they were on the ground. And the foreign governments, I mean, they don't talk to the young. No, not at all. So the issue, I mean, the answer is in the hand of the French Muslims, the new generation, and specifically the one coming from the elite. The elite, the French elite, who is able to, first, to understand, second, to mobilize people, and to be on the ground and on the social medias, and to help people open-minded to promote another version of Islam.
Dr. Fattouh?
I have just a question about the future, and we can. I think last question should be about the future. Do you think Muslim Brotherhood and influences in France and Europe will be more strong or will be weak about the future?
It's a key question. I don't deny their influence. They were instrumental. But as an organization, as an institution, they are no longer on the ground. They talk to the same, to people above 40, 50. The new generation is coming from them, but it's a new generation, and they don't rely on the organization. The Belgium one or the Irish one, I mean, this is the headquarters, or the French one, l'UOIF or Musulmans de France. No, Musulmans de France, it's an organization. It was a very powerful organization, but it's the end of people of 60, 70 years old. And I mean, they are not on the ground. They are not on the social media. They are not where the young are. And they are not in the poor suburbs of the French big cities. No. And they are, I mean, they used to talk to, I mean, high-level people in terms of education. And these kind of people, the one with whom we have a lot of problems, they are not very well educated. So it's another offer. The issue, you know, there is a new variant, and it's every 10-15 days there is a new variant, and a mix with the leftist interpretation of the French society, the deconstruction. You have a lot of Derrida, a lot of Foucault inside some of their speeches, and they explain that laïcité is against the Muslims, and now the jihadist intellectual, French intellectuals, they deconstruct. I mean, they explain. I mean, you had an Orientalist approach, and now we have a Western approach, Occidentalist approach, to deconstruct your ideology and to prove that our ideology is better. It's better for the Muslims, but maybe for the whole French population. So, I mean, to fight political Islam, I think we have to understand that it's not an organization we have to fight now. It's a trend based on, it's an informal trend based on a network of 10 to 15 people, some of them being trained by the Muslim Brotherhood, the French office. Not all of them, and the future is not for the Muslim Brotherhood. The future is for a new generation.
Mais le problème se situe là-dedans. Il y a un marché. Dans ce marché, pour cette nouvelle génération, on trouve soit...
Docteur Faïd, c'était la dernière question vraiment, d'accord, donc soyez prêts.
Okay. The thing is, we are confronted here with the same dilemma. What is the alternative? As my friend just asked before me. I think even with the falling of the Muslim Brotherhood, we have the same phenomena. We ended up by having the Salafist as an offer, as you said. But the other offer with the liberals between brackets, this is it's an old conversation. Even in France, you had some. But since 20 years, what has come out of it? Here we have some alternatives on our regions. Some few individuals who preach a modern liberal Islam, but it doesn't seem to work. So that's the
tested. I've been produced content, and I've been very surprised by who is watching the content. Among them, a half are Salafi. How do we know it? Because we made a specific survey, and with Facebook, the Facebook wall, you know everything about the people. And positive comments, a half were coming from Salafi people. I mean, people exposed to the Salafi way. Why? Because, I mean, it's people who are looking for Islam, and they are finding only one offer. So they go to the offer. But if you propose them an alternative, they can go to the alternative.
It's good.
Yeah, it's good. Of course, it will be not all the people, maybe 20, 30%, not more. But if we don't play the game, we will lose it, for sure.
Can you have access to your content?
Yeah, I mean, I can show you.
Yes.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
قبل أن أختتم أود فقط الإشارة أن السيد حكيم القروي كان يقصد دور المملكة العربية السعودية في السبعينات وبداية الثمانينات، ولكن الآن المملكة العربية السعودية هي في الصفوف الأمامية لمجابهة الإسلام السياسي ولم تعد تدعمه على الإطلاق. ختاما نستطيع القول في نهاية تلك المحاضرة السرية بالأرقام والإحصائيات التي من الممكن أن نتفق على الكثير مما ورد فيها وأن نختلف مع بعض ما ورد فيها أن حوارا عربيا غربيا أصبح ضرورة ملحة، على الرغم من أن الإسلاموية قد أسالت من الحبر الكثير حتى الآن، فإنها لم تدرس بعد بشكل كاف لسبر غورها وتفكيك الأفكار النمطية حولها وحسم الجدل بشأنها. تبين لنا الأدبيات الحالية خصوصا المتعاطفة مع الإسلاموية في الأكاديمية الغربية والمؤدلج منها في الأدبيات العربية أن حتمية ذلك الحوار ما بين الشرق والغرب حول الإسلام السياسي. ويطمح مركز ترينز من خلال أنشطة قادمة بأن يكون راعي ذلك الحوار العلمي بين العالمين العربي والغربي، كما يطمح مركز ترينز بأن يكون منظرا لمرجعية معرفية عربية تهدف أن تكون صوتا لسردية عربية ولمنهجياتها وأدواتها التحليلية، وذلك في ساحة الأكاديمية العالمية المتخصصة في دراسة ظاهرة الإسلام السياسي. فمن العبث أن تكون ظاهرة الإسلام السياسي ظاهرة عربية بامتياز، في حين أن المقاربات غير العربية هي التي تتسيد الساحة في تحليلها وفهمها، خصوصا إذا كانت تغلب على تلك المقاربات والأدوات المنهجية السطحية أو الاختزالية أو الأدلجة. كما يهدف مركز ترينز بتأسيس مقاربته على أسس يتشارك معنا فيها السيد حكيم القروي، من بينها التفريق من البداية بين الإسلام والإسلاموية، وتبني منهج نقدي ومدخل وثائقي يرتكز على وسائط جديدة ومدخل يتعدى حدود التخصصات، ومقاربة لا تتجاهل النصوص المؤسسة لظاهرة الإسلام السياسي. ومن أجل ذلك كله نختتم بما قاله الرئيس التنفيذي لمركز ترينز للبحوث الدكتور محمد العلي: أصبحنا مرجعية في قضايا جماعة الإسلام السياسي، ونحن في إطار عقد حوار مع الغرب حول تلك الظاهرة. باسم مركز ترينز والرئيس التنفيذي الدكتور محمد العلي نشكر ضيفنا لهذا اليوم السيد حكيم القروي على هذه المحاضرة، ونتمنى أن نستضيفه لمرات أخرى. تحياتنا للجميع بالحضور. شكرا جزيلا. Je vous remercie beaucoup de votre présentation et d'avoir accepté l'invitation. Merci beaucoup.
Merci.